and so concerned about what kind of music is actually sung in worship, because that's where we're proclaiming what we believe there. And I often drove my music directors, choir directors and organists crazy, because while I like a tune that's singable, I'm always much more concerned with the words and what it's saying. And so in this time together, we're going to look at some maybe familiar and not so familiar hymns and carols, but we're going to look at them theologically in terms of the message that they're communicating. Also want to say just a little bit about how you prepare for each of our sessions. We've sent you the links so that you can listen to the hymns or the carols that we've chosen, but we're going to go ahead and listen to them as a group because they will be part of our discussion. Today, we're going to spend a little bit of time setting the stage for Advent, on what it is and why it is and what it means for us as a church. And then we're going to try and look at 3 hymns. For sure, we'll get to the 2 of them. And have our discussion around them. The questions for this week will not be the same each week about the hymns. So you won't be asking the same questions every time about every hymn, but these are particularly for these. So we're going to just begin by saying, what was one of the first or the first Christmas song you learned? And how did you learn it? Maybe it's a favorite song, maybe it's not, but what? There's no right answer, so.
Carol Sharp, go
ahead. Joy to the World, and at church when I was a little kid.
Okay.
Okay. Donna, go ahead.
Way in a Manger.
Oh, Way in a Manger, yeah.
And I know it was Away in a Manger. I can't remember all the words now, but it's been a long time since we've sung that hymn in church, I think. Yeah. But anyway, it was meaningful to me.
Okay.
All right. What else? Barbara, go ahead.
So, as a good German, of course, I learned all the German Christmas hymns. Actually, we sang them at home in the Advent time. We sang, I think, every night. Definitely Sundays, but I think it was every night. And of course, I know all the, Stille Nacht is Silent Night, right? O Tannenbaum. And there are the Christian hymns, or like Stille Nacht is very Christian. Whereas to the Christmas. And then there are the other ones that are more like children's songs, like it's kind of translated tomorrow we'll get presents kind of stuff, right?
Oh.
And but there are not these like adult things like here. Like here you have Santa Baby and stuff like that. That doesn't exist in Germany, I think. Here you have all this weird, and also and many are nice, but they are just winter songs. Like I like, for instance, here Chestnuts, but it has nothing really totally to do with Christmas, stuff like that. Right? So,
yeah, you mean some of the contemporary songs, like Santa, Mommy saw, I saw Santa, Mommy by the Christmas tree.
Grandma got run over by a reindeer.
Yeah, that's
my
Kathy, good.
I'm sure it was Jingle Bells.
Jingle Bells.
The first church one I would have learned was Away in the Manger, but as a little kid, Jingle Bells is just really easy to do.
What do you mean movie music, Ruth?
Huh?
You said you wrote movie music?
Yeah, like Winter Wonderland and, from all the movie musicals around Christmas, there's a whole lot of music from that.
Oh, got it. Okay, yeah.
That's where a lot of the contemporary American or the American popular songs, originated with those musicals, really.
Yep. Yeah. Jonathan, go ahead.
In addition to Jingle Bells, Little Town of Bethlehem and Away in a Manger seem to speak to me, as that's what I'm remembering.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. Eleanor, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, for church, I learned Away in the Manger. That was probably the first Christmas song I remember. But then when we were old enough to watch Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer,
Oh.
it was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. That was the song I used to like.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's true. Julie.
and still like it. I'll still sing it. No.
So one of the debate,
Oh wait,
Ruth,
Julie had her hand up. Hold on, Julie. Go ahead, Julie.
My grandmother had a music box shaped like an angel, and I have it now. And I learned Silent Night from singing with that music.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna, my dad was a pastor, so, I mean, I grew up, probably the first song I heard was Before I Was Born. They were all singing in church, so, yeah, I mean, I totally, probably heard it first thing.
In utero. Yep.
Mm.
Go ahead, Jason, now you want to talk about Advent? Because I do want, we're going to want to play some of the videos, right? Okay. So I'll let you talk about Advent so then we can play at least,
oh yeah, no, we're gonna play the ones before we talk about each hymn.
okay. So yeah.
We're gonna listen to it and then talk about it. One of the interesting debates that we get into in church, this is particularly at the clergy level, but it affects the whole church usually, which is, when do you start singing Christmas songs? Okay. There are some pastors that hold to the notion that you do not begin singing. This is the question I asked Dana the other day, so I'll ask it to you. When does Advent end?
You can type it in the chat.
Or you can just unmute.
Go ahead, Ray.
Fourth Sunday before Christmas.
Ray.
Yeah, my friend who's a Greek Orthodox tells me that it ends after the Greek Orthodox Christmas, which is a week after ours, or 2 weeks after ours. So that's when I could take my Christmas decorations down and stop singing Christmas carols.
Ruth said Christmas Eve. Julie said December 24th. Nancy?
Epiphany Sunday.
Epiphany Sunday.
Now remember, I said, when does Advent end?
I have a question to that. I mean, to me, an Advent song and a Christmas song is the same thing. Where is the difference here?
We're gonna get there.
We're gonna talk about. Yes. Thank
Does Advent really end though? Because it's like Advent, the first part is waiting and hoping for the firstborn, and then the second one is waiting for Christ to come back. So that's like Easter, isn't it, or something like that? When he
Doesn't
comes
it
back
end
to
Christmas Day? I thought Advent is waiting until
Faith, bring up.
Christmas.
All right.
I think this is often why the church is confused about Advent.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know when it begins and we don't know when it ends. We do have a problem. Advent is the beginning of the church's liturgical year. So last Sunday was actually Happy New Year for Christians in the liturgical tradition, because Advent begins our liturgical year and the start of our cycles, okay? The season that follows Advent is Christmastide. And it actually is a season, it's not a day. Because Christmastide, it's there to also remind us that Christmas doesn't just come and go. It is a season that's permanently in our lives, or it is a gift that's permanently in our lives. That's why you have the 12 days of Christmas. But the 12 days of Christmas begins on Christmas Day and ends on Epiphany. And so technically, if you're following a liturgical calendar, you shouldn't take your decorations down until January 6th, which starts Epiphany and ends the season of Christmastide. Advent ends on Christmas Eve.
At midnight.
at midnight, because Advent ends when Jesus is born and we begin the celebration of his birth. So some pastors who are truly purists have no Christmas songs until Christmas. So we don't sing the hymns and the carols until Christmas Eve.
Some people, not all people, some pastors.
Some pastors who really want to get into an argument with their congregation, who want to start singing Christmas carols on November, or the day after Thanksgiving, right? You're going to sing Christmas carols. So as a pastor, I made a compromise. We had to clearly sing at least Advent songs for the first 2 Sundays. Then we could go gently into some until we eventually got to Christmas songs, to the ones that really talked about the birth of Christ. Now, Eleanor was correct in, don't look so surprised, in noting that Advent incorporates both the first coming and the second coming. Okay, the term Advent means coming or arrival. That's what it's drawn from. But it was also related to the Greek understanding of parousia, which was the end of the age or the second coming of Jesus. And if you're a liturgical and a lectionary church, all of the gospel readings, and that's what we sent to you, all of the gospel readings, cycle A, cycle B, and cycle C, for the first Sunday in Advent have to do with the end of the world. They're readings about the apocalypse, the second coming of Jesus.
I'm going back and forth between speaker and gallery view because I'm recording this, and I think this could be helpful for other people. So I want to make sure so I don't see any hands raised right now, but I want to just ask a question, Faith, because you keep saying if you're a liturgical or a lectionary church, and that means that there is something that where you're not a liturgical electionary church. So what is the like? What do you tell the group what it's like? What's the difference?
Okay, so a liturgical church builds into its celebrations throughout the year the following of the calendar, the prescribed liturgical calendar. We begin with Advent. We go to Christmastide. We move to Epiphany, which is a long, long season there, which celebrates the church presence in the world. Then we go to Lent there. And then we go into Eastertide, which is itself a season. Then we go to Pentecost Day and the season after Pentecost, or ordinary time, which brings us right back to Advent. And so if a church is following liturgical seasons, they focus on the themes of each of those times during the year.
And if they're not a liturgical, it does. And it's not good or bad, but I was just gonna say, what's the, like, if they're not a liturgical church, what is it?
Then they generally set their own seasons. They follow the calendar of the world. So Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, or they just have their own themes. Right. Eleanor had her hand up.
I just was wondering what exactly is Advent, because for all these years and years, I've been going to church and I'm not 100% sure, you said I was right, but what Advent actually is.
Okay. And feel free to raise your hand and interrupt anything in here. Advent is a season that prepares us to celebrate the birth of Christ and to reflect on what that means for our world. Okay? Oddly enough, if you look at the whole liturgical season, the Sunday before the first Sunday in Advent, everybody still with me? Sunday before the first Sunday in Advent, which we generally celebrate as Thanksgiving, in the liturgical calendar is Christ the King Sunday, or the Reign of Christ Sunday. So think about this. Before you move into Advent and get ready for Christmas, before you welcome the baby, the church has you remember who the baby is. The King, the one who reigns over all. So they want that in your mind before you go into celebrating this birth of a baby.
I just had a short little question because you said Advent is coming. I always thought Advent is waiting for.
But the word means Advent, to come to, arrival.
Oh.
But the mood is Advent. I mean, the mood is preparation, waiting, reflection.
Right.
Somebody else had a hand up.
And
Yes.
Carol Serling. And then
Reverend Faith, can you repeat the name of that first Sunday after Thanksgiving? It had the word
It's
King.
called Christ the King Sunday, or for those who don't like the King image anymore, it's called Reign of Christ Sunday. Reign as in ruler. It's to remind us who the real ruler is for us.
your sound went out. Is anybody, did her sound go out on anybody else's?
Yeah, it went out. It did
Yeah,
go out.
you're frozen.
Reign of something.
There you
Come
go.
again.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay. So it's called.
So it's to the royal ruler is. Somebody asked a question about, is a liturgical church also one that uses the lectionary? The answer is, it depends on the church. Some liturgical churches do not use the designated readings.
Right. But like, so I would even say, so I think our church is liturgical. Sometimes we use lectionary, but sometimes we use book series.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're liturgical in the set. Well, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Yeah. Okay, Michelle, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask the ABC cycle, which one are we starting right now?
We are in the A cycle.
The A, I thought we're in B.
No, this is A.
We're starting A.
Is that
I think
different than
so.
is that different? No, we just got out of A. Now you mean the lectionary, because I got the Will Willimon lectionary things.
Okay, is it B? Then
It's
it's B.
We just started B.
B, and B focuses on, let me see. B focuses on Mark and John as the Gospels.
Yeah, and just as a resource, so Will Willimon has these lectionary sermon resources for the different years. Like you can see, this one is B. It comes in 2 books. There's B part 1, B part 2. He also has A and he has C. So I always I buy these. I mean, again, if you're not really, I buy them because I like to know what's going on.
Now, Advent used to be celebrated much more seriously than it is now. I mean, the church, the medieval church particularly, took it very seriously as a time of penitence, repentance, fasting, prayer, and reflection. It was not a time of celebration.
No celebration.
What?
I said no celebration.
No celebration. Because the predominant figure of Advent, you moved from the end of the world to John the Baptist. Now, I want to know how many of you have John the Baptist in your creche. I want you to go out and get a figure of John the Baptist to put in the creche.
I'm
might
working
have
on one.
one
I've
because-
got one in process right now to put in it. I'm
I
working on
think
it.
Jennifer made me one to put in last year.
I think she made us Herod.
Made
Oh, was
Harry.
it Herod? Oh, was it who it was? Oh, okay. So maybe this year we said she was going to make it. I can't remember, but yeah, I haven't put mine up yet. So I know I have an extra figure. I couldn't remember who it was.
She made us Herod because an important
Okay.
part of Christmas is Herod.
Okay, so I missed that.
And poor Herod gets overlooked.
Right. An important part of Christmas is the slaughtering of children.
Right,
It is.
right.
Because Advent, see, what has happened over the years is that in many ways, we have tended to sentimentalize Advent and Christmas. It really was meant to speak to the sin, the brokenness, the need of the world. Christ was born in a dark time,
Yep.
and we live through dark times too.
Amen.
And Christmas is meant to meet our need. It's like God gave us a gift to meet our real need, not the needs of the Christmas catalogs.
Yep. Barbara, go ahead, and then we should go
Well,
on.
I was more thinking like Advent, well, is a celebration time because you wait for Christ, and that's something positive and something nice.
It's joyous.
Joyous, yes.
Yes, which in our time has come to be different than celebratory
Right.
in terms of that.
It's just, we can go to that. You want to go to the first, but I do want to say it's funny. Chelsea and I had this conversation yesterday about the reality of the nativity and the manger, and when you really, we kind of have made it to be this. It's a little off topic, but I'll come back around. We've made it to be this really nice, pretty, comfortable thing. But if you really think about giving birth and she probably didn't even give birth in a manger, it's not, right? So it goes back to faith, and we kind of think about that as, well, that's not a happy, joyful thing, but yet you can live in a tension where things are uncomfortable, where you have to repent, where you have to reflect, where you have to change, but there's a joy that comes with that. There's a depth of joy, and we want it to be one or the other, but yet it's really both, right, Faith? That's how I would say it.
And when the New Testament talks about the coming of Christ, they talk about it in two ways. Christ will come, and we say that in every communion ritual, Christ will come again. They talk about the coming of Christ at the end of time, but they talk about the coming of Christ into each human heart throughout time. And they keep both views in tension.
Yeah.
Christ has come, Christ will come, Christ will come again.
Yeah.
But they keep it in tension. They don't ask you to choose between the two. By giving us time to reflect at the beginning of Advent, at the end of time, it asks us to consider the impact of our choices and our living. To pretend that it has nothing to do with the end of time or with all of eternity is as wrong as to pretend that everything is focused on the end of time and not now.
Right. That's a good thing. That's good. That's good. Yeah.
Now, New Testament also has two words for time, and that's what Advent is about. One of the words is chronos, Chronos. You know chronos, right?
Chronological.
Chronological, chronicle. Okay, it has to do with linear time. Okay, that which follows right after another. The other one is kairos. Kairos, Kairos. And Kairos means critical time, existential time, time full of meaning. Pregnancy is both chronological time, right? 9 months, when will it be over? When will this baby come? But it's also Kairos time because it's filled with promise and possibility. And the New Testament understands that we live in both those time dimensions. So that kind of sets us in Advent. And we're going to look at 3 Advent hymns today, or at least 2. And the first one is O Come, Emmanuel. Now, would you rather have the information before or well, go ahead. We'll listen to it and then I'll talk about it in a minute.
Let me go ahead. And this is the link that I had sent out, but I'm going to play it now as well. Okay.
I wonder if you could put the text with it.
I don't think
We did send you the text.
but this is oh no, wait, I lost it. What happened? This is, some of this is in Hebrew, so you're not going to understand all of it, but you have the words, and I'll send out the email right now. I got it too late, Faith, and I had no electricity for a while, so I'll send it out right now. I'll send it through an email.
O come, Emmanuel, to free your captive Israel.
What is one of the first things that strikes you when you hear that song and melody? Paul has his hand up.
Sorrow and hope.
Pardon?
Sorrow and hope.
Sorrow and hope intermixed.
Yes.
Carol Serling and then Carol Sadler.
Yes, the minor key makes it seem to have a kind of sadness, but the lyrics are very uplifting and rejoicing part, and it's very hopeful, and I really like it, but I love the minor key.
Carol Sadler, and then I think Barbara and Jonathan and Ruth. Okay, go ahead, Carol Sadler.
Well, just reiterating what Carol Serling said, that it's the kind of plaintive note of the music. And when I look at the description, because I've got an old copy of a hymnal here from way back, and it says that it was adapted from Plain Song. So I think that describes where the music comes from.
Mm-hmm. It's actually from a Gregorian chant in the 8th and 9th century. So it does go back. It's that Plain Song chant.
Barbara, and then Jonathan, I think Ruth. Go ahead, Barbara.
Yeah, I think it's very beautiful, the melody and stuff. But when I tried to listen to the text, it's something like that she is waiting. I think she was waiting to get them out of Egypt or something, or do something. And I thought more, oh, this is more historical. This is not so much us, but the historical, yeah, to be helped by God out of the situation there.
That's a good reference, because it's grounded in Old Testament, which oddly enough, many of our Advent and Christmas songs, if you don't know the Old Testament reference, you don't know what they're talking about.
Here, I'm sharing the words now. Jonathan, go ahead.
When I listened to this, I had the feeling that I did not begrudge the Jewish people their faith. And I honored the fact that it was their faith that brought God to create a whole nation with Abraham. And if you listen to the Muslims, 2 nations. And then I got to think, and later on, this faith helped lead them. God led them out of Israel. I'm sorry, out of bondage, slavery is what I wanted to say, and gave them the promised land. That's a beautiful, powerful story based on faith. And then I think that the Christians have adapted that to say that Emmanuel, God with us, and God will be with us, is the birth of Christ. And I honor that too. So this hymn has a lot of deep meaning for me in it.
Yeah, excellent. Ruth?
To me, it's a song of longing. Is the mood longing of being in captivity or being like a refugee, and a song of longing. So in the music.
I put the lyrics up just so you could see. Anybody? I'm going through. Paul, I think, do you have your hand up? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, following on what was just said, I think there's a very strong sense for me of people who believe and have faith in God living in a brutal world. People who want to be peaceful and loving, and being, in a way, captive because of the tides of the world. Yeah. And that that brings about the sorrow of the song. The theme that's actually in all three of these songs, or is part of, is to be ransomed from sin and from death.
Mhm. That is one of the notes I think we too frequently miss in Advent and in Christmas. It is about sin and death, our need and God's meeting that need. So there's a real serious note. Let me say a few words about the song and then let's look at some of the terms in it. It's called the O antiphons, Antiphons, because every verse begins with an O. Okay. And it was traditionally used during the last 7 days of Advent. And it was sung every night. You'd sing a verse every night at Vespers. That's why it also has that kind of solemnness to it. It was published in the 19th century. And the author generally associated with it is an Anglican priest, John Mason Neale. And then he put it to a plain song. And it has to do with that back and forth of not just celebrating Jesus's birth, but looking at the whole scope of God's work in history. That's why it takes us back to Israel at a number of points. Now, I'll give you something. Bear with me on this. I think it's fascinating, but it also shows what we like to do with words. If you take its O wisdom, O Adonai, or mighty Lord, O root of Jesse, O key of David, O day spring, O king, O Emmanuel, and you put together the first letter of the second word of each one. In other words, drop the O, but put the first letter of the second word, right? You got that?
Sort of.
Right?
So go here. I'm going to type while you talk. So say it again.
Okay. SARCORE. Got that?
Yes.
Okay. That's the first letter of the second word in each antiphon.
That's this. Yes. And what are the antiphons again? What are they?
The antiphons, that's a musical term.
No, but which ones were, I was going to highlight them.
No, they're the first line of each verse.
So
each line of each stanza.
Okay.
If you read that backwards, SARCORE, if you read it backwards, they're an acrostic, which means I will be present tomorrow.
If you read it backward?
If you take SARCORE.
Right.
This is what my research brought to me. This is what we like to do with hymns. Okay. It forms a two-word acrostic, arrow cross, which means I will be present tomorrow. So what the hymn is saying is, I am coming. But the way it's put together involves a promise. I am coming and I will be present.
Not sure I followed all that, folks, but
I'm not sure I followed it either, but I found it absolutely fascinating.
Wait, Ray has a question. Ray, go ahead. Ray had a question. Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, I just wanted to make an observation that doesn't have anything to do with anything aside from the fact that I'm with Dana on not quite following everything that Faith just told us. What I wanted to say is yesterday when I was going through your agenda, I clicked on the links to hear the songs and so forth. And the one that came up, the YouTube version that came up on O Come Emmanuel, was not the one that we just heard, but it was a piano and cello instrumental version of it. And I listened to it a couple times trying to figure out, well, how do I get to the words in this song? And anyway, I never did, but I listened to the rest of them then, and
So I clearly
the
sent
whole-
out the wrong link. Sorry.
yeah, the whole rest of the day, I had that tune in my head. You know, I mean, it's not surprising that it's an old, you know,
Yeah.
very common folk tune, but I couldn't get it out of my head all day, and I kept wondering, what are the words that go with that? What are the words that go with that? So,
Well, we generally sing it at least once during Advent. It's generally sung, but we don't sing that. We don't sing the whole. What do I want to say? All of the verses. We generally only sing a few of the verses. And what I discovered in trying to find the lyrics is there's a dozen different translations of the lyrics. Originally, it was Hebrew, okay, which is what she was singing in it. But there's a dozen different translations, and our United Methodist translation, that's why I listed the alternate translations for you, because I think it's interesting what we leave out.
Yeah. Hold on, Barbara. Julie had a question. I wanted to give her in the chat. She wrote, wait, what language for I will be present? The choir usually sings a different verse for each Sunday in Advent as an intro. I don't understand what you're asking, Julie.
Yeah, I do, Julie. I'm not sure what the acrostic was. I wouldn't take that too seriously.
Okay.
I just found it fascinating because I think it was talking about the whole underlying premise of the tune, which is I will be present with you. Take this as a promise. I am coming.
I already got lost after with the SAR core, because to me, after each O is a come. That's always a C.
They're talking about the names of Jesus.
Yeah, I should have just bolded the name of Jesus that was used in each one.
Julie, what do they choose? I mean, do they just use the United Methodist hymnal?
Yeah, we usually use the verses from the United Methodist hymnal, one per week, from the back of the church before the service starts every Sunday in Advent.
But you have 4 Sundays in Advent and 7 verses.
Yeah, we sing the most cheerful of the verses usually.
Hey, Julie. Now,
thank you.
Now
I don't pick it. I just sing it.
Okay. You can go in and be like, I'm sorry, we need to not be singing cheerful stuff, according to Reverend Faith.
Well, we have had ministers that Advent is as dark as Lent, and the music is very dark for all of Advent. You know, so we've done it both ways, where we have the sort of compromise stuff, and then we've had Advent seasons where it is really dirgy music for 4 weeks.
If you think about it, Advent and Lent are mirror seasons. Okay, they both call for penitence, examination, reflection, waiting. In Advent, you wait for the light to break into the world. In Lent, you wait for the light to go out of the world. But they mirror each other. And the color purple used to tie them both together. But who originated this, I don't know. But the new color for Advent is blue, because they didn't like the solemnity of the purple. We're looking for a more. Now I know, Dana, today we're not going to have time, so we will continue Joy to the World next week, because that's an Advent song. It's not a Christmas song.
But is it actually an Advent song? Because I thought it was a birth song.
No, it's not.
Okay.
That's what's absolutely so fascinating. And Eleanor, I only just learned that in the last year.
Wow. Okay.
Wait, I think somebody, Donna, you had something.
Well, I just wanted to say that I'm more and more interested in finding out which verses are left out, because I was very conscious of the fact that we never would sing a song all the way through that was that long in church on Sunday. But I just, and I thought, what would I leave out? I don't know.
Oh, they generally leave out, and let's just quickly walk through it. So we always sing the first one, ransom captive Israel that mourns in lonely exile here, which is a reference to Babylon and a reference to the exile in Babylon. So the reason it's come into the church's theology and the theology of Advent and Christmas is that God's people often live in exile in the world, or that sense of being separated.
Yeah, and can I just, I just want to add here is that we put a lot of, I think growing up and learning about Old Testament, we talk a lot about the Exodus, but the Babylonian exile, which happened much later, it was very critical in most of the writings of the Hebrew scriptures of the Old Testament. So we don't talk a lot about the Babylonian exile.
Right. And then the interesting verse, "O come thou wisdom from on high." Wisdom is often one of the feminine terms.
Yep.
Dana could speak a little more to that, I think.
Yes, well, it's my favorite. I love wisdom literature.
Yes, it comes out of the wisdom literature. It's often a more feminine term, and it's cause us in her ways to go. Wisdom is her.
It is her.
Yeah, but it's a term used to describe Jesus, one of wisdom. Oh, come. Now, usually the word is, in the original, it was Adonai, Lord of might.
Adonai.
And some of the versions still use Adonai as it rather than Lord. But in ours, we turn it into Lord. And what's the reference there? Who to thy tribes?
On Sinai's height.
Yeah. It's going back to the law given to us in Moses.
That's right.
Tying us once again back to our history. We generally don't sing that verse.
Oh, we don't?
No. Is that when the choir sings, Julie?
Julie, I can't see. Hold on.
Yes.
Oh, it is.
The choir has sung from the back every verse except for the Key of David verse.
Okay.
At one time or another.
Okay.
Depending on the choir director.
But see, we generally don't sing that in church as part of the hymns. Then, "O come thou root of Jesse's tree" is also rod of Jesse's tree. And it can be either because both images are in the Old Testament. Who is Jesse?
David's father.
David's father. But if we don't know our Old Testament history, then we don't know why we're singing that. How is Jesus related to Jesse?
Through David.
That's right.
David.
Interesting is through Joseph. Anyway, I digress.
What?
I said, well, yes, but which is funny because David
Now,
through Joseph.
I want you to listen to this verse, which is an alternate translation for that one. And you can contemplate why the United Methodists chose to go with the one rather than the other. "O come thou rod of Jesse free, thine own from Satan's tyranny. From depths of hell thy people save, and give them victory o'er the grave." as a lead into Christmas.
That's a lot of fun right there. Is it down here? Wait. Oh yeah, here it is. Here's the alternative here. Here's what you just read. "O come thou rod of Jesse free, thine own from Satan's tyranny."
But do you see the seriousness? At Christmas time, we're generally not talking about rising from the dead. We're not talking about sin or death. but originally we were, because we knew those things were real.
Which is interesting because this to me would much more connect to Hebrew scriptures, Old Testament. I mean, when you read Psalms, there's always the dichotomy or tension between, you know, praise, thanksgiving, and then just deep pain and lament and torment.
Right. So then if you move to, O come thou key of David, come and open wide our heavenly home, the captives from their prison free, and conquer death's deep misery. I mean, you can see where we're going with this. And then we move to the day spring. That's another name for Jesus.
That was new to me. Where does that come? Where does that come from? Day spring.
Ruth?
Oh.
Well, it's like the sun, the day's eye, the day's spring, beginning of the day. Sun god, light, day spring.
Day star.
There is
day star, morning star.
I think there's a reference in Isaiah, isn't there? That's day spring?
I believe so. Well, and you would have it, the spring in the desert.
Yeah.
That gives us life is what they're talking about.
Yeah.
That which gives us life. And then it closes with, O come desire of nations bind, all peoples in one heart and mind. From dust you brought us forth to life, deliver us from earthly strife. I mean, we're back again. O come Emmanuel really sets the tone for Advent. And it has a solemnness to it. So I realize we're out of time. We will talk about Joy to the World next week.
And then, so Faith, so we'll do Joy to the World next week. And then, so I did email everybody on this group. You should have received the agenda yesterday. And then I just emailed you, I forwarded on Faith's document that has, it's really what I'm showing, what I just showed. It's got the scripture and then also the lyrics. So check your emails for that. And if you didn't get it, go ahead, Carol Sadler.
This is something that surprised me when I was looking up the lyrics in this old hymnal that I had. At the front of the hymnal, I found directions for singing.
Oh, yeah.
Which
That's
was
great.
from John Wesley's preface to Sacred Melody, 1761. If you Google it, it's hysterical.
Yes, it is.
That he actually had these, half a dozen or so directions for the way that the hymns were to be sung. So
Yes.
I just
And one of them is don't omit verses, right?
Yeah.
Sing all the verses.
Jonathan, go ahead.
The last verse or stanza that we saw was asking for unity, make us all one. And that is so profoundly important today. I just thought it was very relevant to what we're talking about,
Yes.
what we're living today.
So just a question for you to reflect on this week. Would it make any difference to you in the way you approach the manger if you went back and reclaimed some of the old Advent understandings? What would that do if we really began to take Advent as its own season, not as just a prelude to Christmas, but as its own season? What would that do as we prepared to celebrate it? I just kind of ask you to think about that, and then to take maybe this hymn, maybe one stanza or even the refrain, and use it for personal meditation this week. Use it as a lectio.
Yeah, great idea.
This week. I've always been pushed against the notion that we rush from the first day of December to the 25th. We just rush headlong to get to the manger. And Advent says, slow down.
Yeah.
Breathe.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, I'll just wrap up with a couple announcements, then we can stay on. So if you have a question. So next week, Joy to the World. If you didn't get any,
And God rest ye merry.
and God rest ye merry. Okay, if we can get to both of them. Okay.
We will, because we won't need to do all the Advent.
That's right. That's right. We did the Advent discussion ahead. And I sent out documents. If you didn't get them, please email me, let me know. I'll send out another reminder next Wednesday or Thursday. And I think that wraps up today's class. So definitely go in peace, go in grace, go with love. And we'll stay on for a couple more minutes. If you have any questions or feedback, then certainly
I hope you learned something.
Yeah, this is fun. Okay, go ahead.
Check the email, yeah.